It's an all Virginia clash as Richmond and James Madison meet at the Robins Center Natatorium. Welcome into the broadcast here on ESPN+. I'm Natalie Kalibat. Both teams come in with momentum. James Madison beat Towson on Senior Day, while Richmond picked up road wins over LaSalle and Fairfield. We're going to get things started here with the women's 3-meter championship. Of course, the divers doing 6 dives, 1 in each direction, along with 2 twisters, and can do a front twister, a back twister. And we're going to begin things off. Alexa Holloway, James Madison will be going first. Emma Yeakley of Richmond going second. Lindsay Hammer of James Madison going third. Abigail White of James Madison diving fourth. Felicity Ryan of James Madison diving fifth. Lexi Lehman of James Madison diving sixth. And Madison Yeager of James Madison diving seventh. The divers beginning on the 3-meter springboard, the higher of the two, the one on the further side of your screen. And the divers doing 6 total dives. Alexa Holloway of James Madison will lead things off. She's doing a back 2.5 somersault in the tuck position. Nice way to start off the competition. Holloway will receive a 7 and a 7.5 on her first dive. Emma Yeakley of Richmond doing a forward 2.5 somersault in the pike position. Yeakley, the lone senior diver for Richmond. She'll be honored later today. We'll take a look at her first dive. Gets to the end of the springboard, gets her arms all the way through a tight pike, squares out and lines it up as Lindsay Hammer mirrors, does the same dive. She'll receive a 7 and a 6.5 on her first round dive. Abigail White of James Madison will begin with a back twister. Squared that dive up with a nice entry. You can see gets her chest over the takeoff. Gets into that tight twist, squares it out, lines it up as Felicity Ryan does reverse dive tuck. She'll do a reverse dive pike, a lower degree of difficulty dive. Lexi Lehman of JMU doing a 205C, a back 2.5 somersault in the tuck position. Nice angle there. You can see she went straight in line with the springboard. The springboard, that blue aluminum surface that the divers catapult off of. As we have one more diver to close out the round, Madison Yeager doing a back 1.5 somersault in the layout position. Beautiful position in the air, that layout where your body is completely straight. We're going to start the second round of dives. Alexa Holloway of JMU doing a back 1.5 with 2.5 twists. They'll receive a 6 and a 6.5. Stays on the takeoff, nice twist, and she'll lead after the first round. Emma Yakeley, a reverse dive pike, a lower degree of difficulty dive. She receives a 6.5 and a 7 on that dive. Diving is all about that degree of difficulty that you can present to the judges. So the higher degree of difficulty dive that you have, the more points that you can get on that dive. Lindsay Hammer gets the most out of the diving board from that back 2.5. Gets a good jump out of the springboard. Tight tuck. Just a little short of vertical on the entry. Abigail White dive. Really nice dive for Abigail White. She'll receive great dive, you can see. Gets her shoulders in line with her ears. A clean entry. Felicity Ryan doing a back 2.5 somersault in the pike position, a 3.0 degree of difficulty dive. And that right there was the highest degree of difficulty dive for the entire competition. She gets a 6 and a 5.5 on that dive. Execute position, lines it up. Great points for Ryan. And that was Lexi Lehman of JMU doing a reverse 2.5 on 3 meter. It's all about who can hit the back and the gainer category, some of the more challenging ones throughout the competition. Nice second round dive for Madison Yeager. She'll receive 6.5s on that dive. Alex Holloway seeing that 280 zone score on 3 meter, her season best at 296.03. So far, she's off to a great start. Just over rotates on the bottom, showing the judges she can execute the dive. Really nice takeoff. Gets tremendous height, just over rotates there on the bottom. Yeakley doing a back 2.5 in the tuck position. Comes up just short on the entry of that dive. A lot of times that's due to your takeoff. Her arms just short of going past her ears, so she just kicks out a little bit early. Excellent dive from Hammer of JMU. Drills her gainer 2.5 for 6s. Excellent camera work from our crew here with a tight shot as Hammer gets all the way through her takeoff with a tight tuck, pikes out and finishes on the bottom. Abigail White, another one who is closing in on a zone score. 266 is her best, just needs 14 points. Felicity Ryan doing an inward 2.5 somersault in the tuck position. Stays perfectly straight with the diving board, a very entry. Had a rip on the bottom. Stays over, tight tuck. Point, really nice toe point on the entry. Lexi will receive a 6 and a 6.5 on that dive. Madison Yeager doing a reverse dive in the pike position. She'll receive a 4.5 and a 5.5 on that dive. Goes a little out and just over rotates on the bottom. Holloway, our leader thus far, doing a forward 3.5 somersault position. Over rotates on such a challenging dive. Holloway has been great so far. A lot of DD front loading that list here. Gets her arms up, makes the most of her takeoff. Just over rotates on the bottom. Big dive. Yeakley will receive 4.5 and 5s on that inward 2.5. Keeps her chin up on the start, just buries her head a little bit on the entry to over rotate. Hammer doing the same dive. Nice inward 2.5. Hammer with really nice entries, staying tight as she goes through the water. You can see her toe point as well. White has a nice entry on that inward 2.5. 6.5. In diving, it's about the start and the finish. She keeps her head up on the takeoff and then mirrors it on the entry. Really fast dive, stops it nicely with that square out on the entry. It's tremendous height, keeps her head up, squares out above the springboard. Lehman doing an inward 2.5 in the tuck position.
Score. 4-4.
Fours on that dive as Yeager closes out the 4th round with a reverse twister. Gets to the end. Rushes a little bit off the takeoff, but makes up for it on the entry as she goes parallel with the water. Her hips go out ever so slightly. She twists so fast, makes up for it in the air. We begin the 5th round of diving with Holloway doing a reverse 2.5. the takeoff. Holloway needs 90.4 points for that zone score that we know she's looking to achieve here at the end of the competition. Just rushes off the takeoff, gets into that tuck. Kicks a little too early. The senior for Richmond will receive a 7 and a 7.5 on her front twister. Excellent round for Yeakley. Gets her arms all the way up, squares out above the springboard with a clean entry on the end.
Dive number has been changed to 5-2-3-1.
Lindsay Hammer changing her dive from a reverse twister to a back 1.5 half. Really nice dive, lower degree of difficulty dive, so it's all about control. Controlling the takeoff and controlling the finish. She does a nice job of balancing both. Abigail White of JMU doing a forward 2.5 in the pike position. Incredible height from White. She's for it, receives an 8 and a 6. Sets up the takeoff, gets to the end, squares out and lines it up. Needs 28.58 to beat her season best. Felicity Ryan of JMU doing a back 1.5 in the layout position. Gets momentum from the takeoff. Washes by on that dive. Stays straight as a board in the air, just over rotating on the bottom. Flamin with a nice double twister of 2.5 degree of difficulty. Commanding hurdle. Gets right into the twist, squares out. The judges are looking for that straight, parallel position with the board on trees for twisters. That angle, you could see Yeager just twists her body on the takeoff on that inward 2.5, so the judges will deduct a point from that. We'll start the 6th and final round. Holloway just needs 61 in the last round for that zone score. Nice way to end the competition. We'll get a 7.5 and an 8 on that back twister to close out the competition. Rips the entry. Yeakley gets right into that twist. She'll receive 6 and 5.5 on that dive. Lindsay Hammer closing out with a back 1.5 with 2 twists. Shows control in the air and on the entry. She spins so fast, gymnastic-like movements right here. Just a little bit short on the finish. Abigail White looking for that 37-22 in this round to get her zone score. Twist, lines it up, and she gets it done. 41-25. She'll get her zone score on 3-meter. Ryan makes that back twister look easy, getting 6.5 and a 6 on that dive. Keeps her head in line, squares out above the board, lines it up in the entry. This angle, looking straight at the diving board, you can see if the diver stays in line with the diving board. She gets right into the twist on the takeoff. Just gets a little twist on the bottom. Solid finish for Jaeger. She'll get a 1/2 and a 7 on that dive. Keeps her core engaged on the end of the springboard. Head stays still. Commanding twist. Lines it up, a beautiful entry. Abigail White will take the win for JMU with a 284.03. Holloway just short of that zone score with the 274.8. And now the divers will get a bounce or two in on the 1-meter. So while they're warming up, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Score!
Lehman will begin the competition, receiving a 7 and a 6 on her first dive.
University of Richmond, 1-0.
Yakeley diving second for Richmond. The only senior diver.
Changing that to 104B. 104B. Score! 6.5, 6. Felicity Ryan, 403B.
Yakeley gets to the end, a foot entry dive. Felicity Ryan begins the competition with an inward 1.5 pike.
6.5, 6. Hammer, Lindsay Hammer, 105.
Keeps her chest up on the start, squares out above the board. Hammer, so much power. We saw that on the 3-meter. A solid forward 2.5. Gets it going right off the takeoff, wastes no time with a clean entry. Abigail White,
6.5.
a back 1.5 half.
Madison Jaeger, 203.80.
Gets her arms all the way up, just short on the entry, totaling 36 on that dive.
Score. 5.5, 6. Rounding out the first round,
Abigail White
Holloway, 303.
gets so much power off the takeoff. Just over rotates on the bottom.
Score.
7 and 6.5
Round 2, Lehman,
for
303.
Holloway, and we'll begin the second round of diving. Does a nice job with that reverse 1.5 in the pike position.
Yakeley, 105C.
Gets all the way to the end of the springboard, gets her arms through, and a nice entry.
Score. 4.5, 4. Ryan, 105B.
Yakeley just over rotates on that forward 2.5. Ryan just comes up a little short on that 2.5 height. The 1 meter is a lot like the floor exercise in gymnastics. You don't have as much room to complete these dives, so they're a lot more challenging. Hammer just washes by on that dive.
White, 203B.
Gets into a tight pike. Her toes just wash over there on the entry. White, a biology major.
Yeager, 105B.
Yeager continuing
4.5, 6.
that commanding presence that she has off the end of the springboard.
3B.
Gets a little bit back on the end of the springboard, but makes up for it on the finish.
Score. 7.
Holloway with a really nice back twister.
Round 3, Lehman,
Just loses her feet
105C.
there in the air. Sometimes that'll happen when you're in the middle of a twist.
Score.
Lehman with a lot of energy on that dive.
Yakeley,
Sets up the hurdle.
303C.
Gets a ton of height, gets into a tight tuck, just buries her head on the close of the dive.
Score. 5.5, 5. Ryan, 303B.
Keeps her arms up. Nice entry. Felicity Ryan. Ryan will receive 5.5s and a 6 on that dive.
303D.
Hammer is showing overall consistency
7.
on both boards, getting 7s on this dive.
303.
Gets to the end. Gets her arms all the way through and closes on the finish. White's 3-meter win was the first of her college career on any board, so you know she's looking to use some of that momentum here on the 1-meter. Just picks her legs up on the start, which causes her to drop and go a little bit short.
Score! 5, 4.5.
A 5 and a 4.5 for Jaeger that round.
403 B.
Doesn't quite get to the end of the springboard. Tries to find that push off of the springboard. A lot of height on that dive for Holloway. She's been a fast starter on both boards. Led after the first round. Picks her hips up, shows control. That's exactly what the judges are looking for. You can see a lot of the women are doing the same dives. So the judges are able to compare and contrast, especially when they're doing the same dive right after one another. Keeps her head up on the start. What a thrill it must have been for Yakeley to get the season best on 3-meter on her senior day. So far on 1-meter, she's having a good competition. Just over rotates on that dive, but she has the support of her team here on the sidelines of the pool deck. Felicity Ryan will go just short on that back 1.5, receiving 5.5. Puts her head back a little bit on the takeoff, and her legs just drop short of vertical.
4, 7.
Hammer will receive a 7 and a 6.5. Picks her legs up on the takeoff, squares it out. Anytime you can square out one of your dives on 1-meter, that's a sign of control and of power. Another diver who squares out her inward 1.5 pike. That's Abigail White of JMU.
5-3-3-3.
Gets everything she can out of the board, squaring out. Reverse 1.5, 1.5 is a hard dive to complete on the 1-meter springboard. Have to be patient on the end and get your arms all the way through, which she does. Twists so tightly and efficiently. Alexa Holloway with an efficient forward 2.5.
Start round 5, Lehman.
Gets the most out of her base leg and finishes with a nice entry. Lehman with a forward 1.5 with 1 twist. Does a nice job of setting up the hurdle, staying square on the start and on the finish. Yakeley with a nice inward 1.5 in the pike position. entry on that back twister for Felicity Ryan. Her last round place was 5th.
5-3-3-3-D.
Drills the entry. Lindsay Hammer also competing that reverse 1.5, 1.5. A challenging dive on 1 meter. Finding the balance of getting to the end of the springboard and getting right into that twist, which she does a nice job of. Abigail White, 6th place entering this round, gets to the end, tight pike,
403B.
lines it up.
Score.
62-48 points are needed for Jaeger to climb into that first place spot.
303B.
Just short on that dive. Holloway still in a good position for that zone score. She's on pace for around a 270. Just short on the takeoff, lets her hips go out, and that allows them to drop short of vertical on the entry. Lehman, such a fast and efficient twister. A forward 1.5 with 2 twist, a hard dive. She gets the most out of the springboard, gets right into the twist, lining it up. Yakeley needing 49.05 for first place.
5-2-3-3-D.
Gets right into that twist. A lot of power and height.
Score. 6.
Ryan getting a 6 and a 5.5 on this dive.
3-3-3-D.
Really efficient twisting. Lines up the entry. Hammer was first leading this round. She'll look to maintain that top spot here on the 1 meter competition.
5-1-3-2-D.
Really nice twist, just washes by on the entry.
Score. 7.5. 6. Jaeger. 5-2-3-3-D.
White with dancer-like rhythm in that twist, disappears in the water. Jaeger's last round place was 2nd behind her teammate Lindsay Hammer. She'll look to stay there with this dive.
Holloway. 5-2-3-1-D.
Nice job with the twist. Secures the entry with very little splash. Holloway doing a back 1.5 half, a lower degree difficulty dive. She gets a lot of height and shows that control of the square out in that twist.
Senior day goal meet. The spiders introduced. Swimming will start.
And that'll conclude the women's 1 meter springboard event. A lot of really nice diving for both Richmond and JMU. Of course, the diving provides a lot of points to the total swimming and diving points total at the end of this dual meet. We have those women's 1 meter results for you. In first place, Madison Yeager of JMU with a 2:70.15. In second place, Lindsay Hammer of JMU with a 2:59.73. In third place with a 2:56.20, Alexa Holloway of JMU. In fourth place with a 2:42.78, Felicity Ryan of James Madison. In fifth place is Lexi Lehman of JMU with a 2:42.55. In sixth place with a 2:40.45 is Abigail White of JMU. And in seventh place with a 2:38.05, Emma Yakeley of Richmond. And that'll conclude the women's 1 meter springboard event. All divers will contribute points to the total point standings in this dual meet. Every dive counts. You saw the ladies did a really nice job executing their dives. And we'll turn our attention to the swimming portion of the competition. And of course, we'll honor those seniors for Richmond as well.